Hey friends, it's Jacqueline for Pixie Dust PhD. My partner and I are doing something pretty fun that's Disney related, specifically it's Marvel related, in our local town today, so I thought I would take you along with us. Stay tuned. I am so excited. Tonight we are headed off to see the National Symphony Orchestra, or NSO, play at the Kennedy Center, and specifically they will be playing the score to Black Panther while the movie plays in the background. We've lived in the DC area for a little over 3 years now, and I've not actually been to the Kennedy Center proper, which is a little bit of a travesty. Back in late summer of 2019, they opened part of the complex called The Reach, and they were doing a ton of these really high quality events for free to promote that The Reach was opening. One of these was they brought down 4 Broadway stars, and Alan Menken came in, and they did a bunch of Alan Menken's hits, and he played piano for a while and talked, and it was just such a wonderful event. And after going to that, my partner and I committed to going to more live theater, live orchestra, more of the live performing arts. Of course, that was late summer of 2019, so we didn't have too many opportunities before pandemic hit. Originally, the NSO was supposed to play the score to Pixar's Up while the movie was playing in May 2020, and we were really excited about that. But May 2020, so that didn't end up happening. Luckily, we hadn't purchased tickets yet, so it was no big real loss for us, but obviously that was disappointing. That exact event, Pixar's Up with the NSO, has been rescheduled, but it's for Thanksgiving time, and we already have commitments, so unfortunately we won't be able to see that. Knowing that we couldn't do the NSO playing the Up score, we decided to instead pivot and do the NSO Pops, is what they call it, when they do sort of pop culture things, for Black Panther. I think the Black Panther score is really interesting. It's arguably, to me, and this is personal taste, not necessarily as beautiful as the Up score, but it's got a lot of interesting notes. It has that sort of techie future vibe. It's also got some prominent, I believe, African drums, so I'll be interested to see if they are bringing in special guests to supplement the orchestra who can provide that flavor. My partner and I also scored a really good deal, so we are sitting in seats that go for about $70, and we only paid about $30 for them, so I think that's going to be fantastic, and I always love a good deal. I doubt I'll be able to take pictures or film or anything once we're in the actual theater, but I'll try to take you along on the adventure as best as I can. Prior to heading to the Kennedy Center, we did grab a few quick bites, so we went to 2 different happy hours, sort of in that area of town. First, we went to Chef Jeff's West End. Their happy hour ended at 6, and we got there around 5:50, so we made it just in time. We got large wine pours as well as some snacks. So we had the honey sriracha wings, which were surprisingly spicier than I thought they would be. And then we also got a flatbread that was just like basil mozzarella sauce, like plain, but it was good. We finished up there around 6:30, and the Black Panther performance didn't start until about 8. So we started walking towards that way and then ended up stopping at Circa Foggy Bottom for one more drink. We got blueberry mules, I think they were, and we split some calamari. Circa at Foggy Bottom is right across the street from the Foggy Bottom Metro, which also is where the free shuttle to the Kennedy Center picks people up and drops people off. You absolutely can walk. It's probably about 15 minutes, but the shuttle was coming so regularly. They have at least 3 of them for sure. Posted signs say they leave every 15 minutes, but it was definitely faster than that. So, hey, if the shuttle's there, why not just take it?
The next day.
Honestly, wow. So first of all, the Kennedy Center is stunning. I think there's a few extra decorations up right now because they are celebrating their 50th year, much like Walt Disney World, but some of that stuff is definitely permanent. We entered through the Hall of Nations, I believe. They have all of these flags. It's a beautiful space, red carpet, the whole 9 yards. Also, in case anyone was wondering, they were enforcing indoor masking regardless of your vaccination status, and I didn't see anyone not complying with that, so that was nice. And then for anyone 12 or older, you had to show proof of vaccination, and for anyone under 12, then you had to show a negative COVID test within the last 72 hours, I believe. There was no eating and drinking inside, I think because of the mask mandate, but you could go out onto the terrace, which also was just gorgeous. We took the free Kennedy Center shuttle over from the Foggy Bottom Metro. The shuttle only took like 4 or 5 minutes, so we got there pretty early. I wanted to make sure we would have plenty of time to do our COVID check, and then also we did have to pick up our tickets from will call. So we had, more than a half hour. So we did go out and enjoy that outdoor terrace for a while. It was honestly just like really lovely. It was such a nice, relaxing way to start our night. Well, at least start it at the theater. We then made our way into the concert hall. We had these amazing seats in row Q of the orchestra section, so we were pretty close, honestly. As I figured, I wasn't necessarily allowed to film or take photos inside the concert hall, though a lot of people were doing it sort of outside of performance time, so I figured that must be okay. So I did take a few clips while the orchestra was sort of warming up before they started, both before the entire thing and then also coming back from intermission break. And then after the close of the credits, when it was, encore time, applause time, they didn't do an encore, but folks cheered a lot. That's when I took some additional footage. The orchestra did the entire movie, so the beginning, opening scene through the very end credits, yes, even those boring black and white ones. Not only did they play the whole score of the movie really front to back, but they did leave alone the parts that they couldn't replicate, so any obvious hip hop, basically, they didn't do, which I appreciated because I was wondering how they were gonna handle that. And in addition to the orchestra, a wonderful man, I believe his name is Massamba Diop, came all the way from Senegal, and he plays the talking drum, this traditional African instrument, and apparently he was on the original score, and so that is sort of the theme used for Chadwick Boseman's character, the Black Panther. It was really awesome to hear all of this come to life, and especially the addition of the talking drum, I think was so important for this movie. Naturally, it is live music. It was the full orchestra plus the talking drum, so it was a little loud. We didn't necessarily need earplugs by any means, but there were points where the score was louder than the dialogue for sure. The giant screen in the back did have closed captions on the whole time though, so it really wasn't a problem. It's so interesting to see a movie in this way where really the score is at the forefront, and I think I noticed some moments and got more emotional about them than I ever had before previously just watching the movie in the theaters or at home. The score really stood out to me live and in person during the ancestral playing scenes. I think it's a little more muted in the movie, but gosh, when they're playing it live, it is so beautiful. And also there are, of course, these big moments. There was a lot of audience cheering, which was awesome. So after the opening scene, and then of course when the Marvel opening credits came in and they did the Marvel theme, that was really powerful. When Stan Lee came on screen, everyone cheered, obviously, and there were a lot of moments, but I think one of the most moving ones was at the end credits, the fancy, beautiful ones. When Chadwick came up, everyone cheered, and I found it pretty moving, honestly. I was a little bit surprised because obviously I don't have a personal connection to Chadwick. We don't know each other. I certainly don't pretend to feel like I have the same pain level as his friends and family from his passing, but he is just an incredibly important figure, and I think this movie, it is one of my favorite Marvel movies, and also I just can't overstate how big of a deal it is. And to be in a theater with that many people, and it was way more than I've ever seen a movie with, it was bigger than the biggest IMAX theater I've been in, and everyone's there so appreciative of the art and Chadwick, and it was really honestly beautiful and touching. We were in the orchestra level, so we were actually seated below, I think, the orchestra themselves. The more expensive tickets certainly are higher up levels, and I can see why, because I found myself wanting to identify who was playing. I don't think the folks on the flute came in too often, but when they did, it was really prominent, and I wish I could have seen them. From where we were sitting, I could mostly see the strings folks and then the horns section, but not really anyone else. And there are some of those, to me, they sound almost futuristic sounds that pop up here and there, and I think it might be a xylophone or something similar. I have no music background, so I really don't know, but when they came up, when I heard them, I wanted to be able to see who they were, who was playing, and what instrument was being played, and I just couldn't from our seats. But they were really good seats, but now I understand, having seen the NSO live, why the seats in the higher up levels tend to be more expensive, because then you can really see the orchestra. Overall, it was an awesome date night, getting to go to the Kennedy Center proper for the very first time. Obviously seeing a movie that both my partner and I really love, but then with the added emphasis of the live orchestra and the live score on top of it, it was, I keep saying this, but it was moving and it was beautiful and it was really awesome. We had an amazing time. I absolutely think it was worth the price. I know we got a super good deal on tickets, but even had we not, I think it would have been worth the price. I don't know how common it is for cities, orchestras, or similar to sort of do this, where they're playing the score or the soundtrack live to a movie, but if you have a chance, I would highly suggest you go. Having this experience is definitely hard to put into words, and I just don't think there's anything comparable that you can do at home while watching a movie. The energy in the room is palpable, and I think it's really a very special experience, and I hope you all get the chance to appreciate something like this in the future. Thanks for coming along on our local Disney-esque adventure. Definitely Marvel, not exactly Disney, but they're totally interlinked. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button to like the video and consider subscribing to the channel. You can ring the bell icon to receive notifications whenever I upload new videos. I hope the rest of your day is super magical, and we'll see you real soon at Pixie Dust PhD.